Hello, I'm Chylli from Channel Chylli, also known as Try. We are back with more Saya no Ura. Hopefully finishing it off now. We're 7 hours in. I heard the game was supposed to take like maybe 6 hours to get the true ending, but that's also on the Steam version probably, which has the sex scenes cut. So mine might take a bit longer, probably. Koji enters the living room and feels along the wall for the light switch. The moment he flips it on, the answer to his question is revealed. How far has Fuminori gone? Koji realizes that this is the first time he has encountered Fuminori's insanity in visible form. From the dust piled in the corners of the room, it is clear that the paint was not applied recently. How many nights has Fuminori spent surrounded by this maddening array of color? Why, if such obvious signs were available, why didn't Koji realize that something was wrong before it got this bad? Was he deaf to the dying screams of Fuminori's sanity, or was their friendship really so worthless? As he stands petrified in the unfamiliar living room, Koji directs his anger entirely at himself. If he could, he would like nothing more than to apologize to Fuminori for failing to help him through his suffering. Koji feels that he might have been able to save his friend. Perhaps he is arrogant to think so, but if so, it is arrogance born of kindness. Koji passes through the living room and opens the sliding door that leads to the kitchen. When he enters, he finds that the most disturbing of the house's many stenches is strongest here. Blood. The room is redolent with the smell of countless layers of blood grown stale over time. He peers into the well-used sink. Around the rim, he sees faint brownish-red splotches that water alone couldn't rinse off. Even more obvious are the stains on the dish rag. Such stains are proof that the rag was used and reused countless times. But what could it have been used on to make it that sickening burgundy color? Koji stares at the refrigerator next to the counter as though it were a monster waiting to swallow him whole. He stands motionless until he is able to work up the courage simply to touch it. Then he steels himself against the thick handle and opens the door. First he'll check the freezer, then the refrigerator. The freezer is packed with frozen meat of varying shapes and sizes. As each piece is wrapped tightly and frosted over plastic, you can't tell what kind of meat it is. The meat in the refrigerator, however, has already been thawed for consumption. For a while, he can only stare in disbelief at the 5 fingers beckoning to him from the back of the compartment. They're the long, slender fingers of a woman, their bluish tinge giving them the appearance of waxworks. Koji is unable to remember what Omi's hand had looked like, even though he had kissed her fingers countless times. When he finished crying after his conversation with Fuminori, Koji promised himself that he would not cry again, and in fact, he does not. He regrets his decision, however. He indulged himself too early. He should have saved his soothing tears for this moment. For now, he knows that truly nothing is sacred. At last, his doubts about Fuminori has been utterly obliterated. Koji pulls Ogai's revolver from his pocket and wraps his hands around its grip like he would a charm. Its definite presence, its promise of merciful annihilation, is the only thing keeping his sanity intact. He will surely use it to kill Sakisaka Fuminori. Not for revenge. Not for justice. But to make this world once more a place governed by reason. For that purpose alone, he must eliminate the anomaly. He breathes deeply, exhales, and lifts his hand before his face and stares at his spread fingers. Alright, he's not shaking. He is prepared to face his new objective. Koji sticks the revolver back into his pocket and pulls out his phone. Alright, and I think these lead to the final endings of the game. So let me really quickly save here. I think calling Ryoko first, maybe? I did save in the right spot, right? Yeah. The ringing of her cell phone interrupts Ryoko's labors. When she sees that the caller is Tono Koji, she unwittingly breathes a sigh of relief.
Tambo da. どうした?
Even over the phone, Ryoko can hear the change in Koji's tone. His is the dull, flat voice of someone who has had all the energy being out of him. I mean, he's killed 2 people? I don't think 2 is too many to count, but sure. His first steps into Ryoko's world have already brought him face to face with something particularly gruesome. In consideration of his probable state of mind, she decides to say nothing. Koji continues.
Kimi wa 生きているうちにこの電話をかけてきたんだから、まだ致命的な間違いを犯したわけじゃない。
Ryoko says, praising Koji in her own way. Whether he is comforted or not is up to him.
ともかく、もう今度こそ間違うな。私が戻るまで動くんじゃない。君が相手にしているやつは一筋縄じゃいかない相手だ。
With their understanding of Saya deepening by the hour, Ryoko is able to make this declaration with new confidence. Koji's actions were rash, but there's no point regretting them now. The more proactive approach would be to use the pressure that he's placed on Fuminori. Ryoko's involvement is still a secret. That makes her a wild card. Depending on how she plays it, this advantage could be decisive.
まだ十分な量とは言えない。
Ryoko answers, glancing sidelong at the loose leaf pages still scattered across the table.
そうだな。夜までには目処をつけて、夜半には東京に戻ろう。それまで君は余計なことをせず、おとなしくしている。いいね。はい。
The lack of emotion in Koji's voice is actually reassuring to Ryoko. He's a machine now, able to do whatever it takes to accomplish a single goal, the extermination of Sakisaka Fuminori. He's even willing to accept help from Ryoko. His principles hardly mesh with his. A praiseworthy change indeed. After Ryoko hangs up, she gloomily counts the stacks of loose leaf that she still needs to be restored. There's no time left. He'll only be able to get the general picture. If she has to go into battle with only fragmentary knowledge, then there's only one thing she absolutely must decipher. Ogai's biological reports, which should contain information on the strengths and weaknesses of the organism called Saya. All she can do now is pray for luck as she dives back into the mountains of paperwork. Today was the first time I've driven since the accident last summer. The proposition was always too dangerous to consider given my inability to recognize roads and cars. Things have changed, however, in the past 3 months. I've had to adapt to my condition. I know what cars and pedestrians look like now, and even though I can't exactly see colors, I've learned to decipher lights and turn signals. I still can't read street signs, of course. Nevertheless, I've managed to make it safely to our destination with Saya and Yo in the back seat. It was Saya who came up with the idea for our new hideout, an abandoned building she'd discovered while living with Dr. Ogai. In these hilly suburban residential areas, it's not hard to find thick patches of undeveloped forest just off the beaten path. Saya's old playground is located in one such secluded area, unaffected by the flow of everyday life. There used to be a privately operated sanatorium hidden among the silent trees. After the owners went bankrupt, it remained unsold and was eventually forgotten. After I left Saya and Yo at the hideout, I returned to town to make some preparations. Now I'm finally back at our new refuge. I liked this ruin from the moment I saw it. Mounds of construction materials and garbage litter the front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. This place looks even less likely to receive unwanted attention than our house. Since my brain sees humans as revolting monsters, places they've been tend to stink or seem covered in filthy slime. Ruins like these, long empty of life, are the places I find the most restful.
Tadaima.
I call out to let them know I'm not a stranger, then I go back down to the basement where they're hiding.
おかえりなさい。車平気だった？
もう全然問題ない。一方通行の標識もどういうのか分かったし、スピードさえ出さなければどこを走っても大丈夫だよ。で、そっちは？
一通り調べたけど、やっぱりあれからずっと人が来た様子はないみたい。ここは安全だよ。
そうか。ならいいんだけど。
I'm a little worried that this abandoned building could become a hangout for biker gangs or homeless people.
多分表に積み上げてあるゴミのせい。あれ普通の人間にはちょっと耐えられないんじゃないかな。
It doesn't bother me at all. I rather like it, in fact. But of course normal people would feel differently.
で、ふみのりの買い物はいいの見つかった？
ああ、もちろん。
I proudly unwrapped the weapon I just bought from a camping goods store. A 1-meter-long wood axe. The biggest and sturdiest I could find.
刃渡り15センチ以上のナイフは銃刀法違反だなって張り紙してあるのに、その隣でこんなもの売ってるんだよ。お笑いだよね。
I gripped the axe with both hands, testing its dependable weight, then swing it like a baseball bat. The deadly steel blade sweeps through the air, right where a person's neck would be. Yo, who sprawled out on the floor, flinches at the sound and curls herself into a ball.
切れ味とかどう？用で試してみたら？
Wow, Saya.
いや、それはちょっと。
I definitely wasn't expecting Saya to suggest anything so brutal.
心配いらないよ。今のようの体だったら刃物とかの傷は割と簡単に治っちゃうから。
いや、それにしたって痛いだろ。
そっか。うん、そうだね。
It must have slipped her mind completely. She smiles at the oblivious Yo as if to hide her embarrassment, then says,
でもさ、痛くされた時のようの声って、それはそれで可愛いよね。
いや、やっぱり人間に斧で切りかかるってのは気が引けるよ。
そうなの？じゃあ、コウジさんは？
そりゃだって。
It should be obvious, but I guess that Saya still doesn't understand.
やつは僕には人間に見えないから、切ろうが潰そうが平気なもんさ。
そんなに違うんだ。
そうさ。人間には良心があるからね。どんなに憎い人間だろうと、人を殺すと思うとブレーキがかかるもんだ。そこが僕の称賛でもある。
本当に？
I mean, I guess, yeah, if Koji hesitates, Fuminori will not. Saya seems awfully subdued. I guess she's concerned about what'll happen when I have it out with Koji.
体格じゃあいつが上だし、普通に喧嘩したんじゃ勝ち目は薄いかもしれないけどね。でも、僕にとっての化け物退治が、あいつにとっては人殺しなんだ。こいつは大きいよ。あいつはきっと最後の瞬間で隙を見せる。
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying.
なんだか不安なんだよね。そういう心理戦っていうの確実じゃないっていうか。
Saya says softly, staring at the floor with unusual gravity. She raises her head and looks straight at me.
ねえ、やっぱり私が買った方が良くない？
I appreciate Saya's consideration. Even though it could be interpreted as a lack of faith in me, she's still putting my safety above hers. Nevertheless, I can't accept her heartfelt suggestion.
サヤの腕力だとさ、ヨウみたいな女の子なら楽にねじ伏せられるだろうけど、男を相手には厳しいと思うんだ。
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. The bitter memory of Saya's rape is still fresh in my mind. Saya falls silent for a moment, seeming to understand what I'm thinking, but then comes right back to stubbornly press her case.
でもね、あのおじさんも最初の不意打ちはうまくいったの。大抵の人間はね、作用を見たら力が抜けて動けなくなっちゃうんだよ。病院だってそうだった。平気で話しかけてきたのって文則だけだよ。
まあ、それも一理あるかもな。
I can't imagine it personally, but I suppose it's possible that Saya's appearance is shocking enough to make someone lose their nerve. Kazumi was able to gain the advantage because he had the same condition as me, which let him see Saya as a cute girl. Fear doesn't necessarily make people weaker, however. Depending on the situation, it could even send someone into a berserk rage and make them harder to put down. In other words, such a tactic would be the same sort of gamble that Saya's worried about.
じゃあさ、サヤ、こういうのはどうだろうか。
I tell Saya the new plan that had just popped into my head. Her gloomy frown turns into a bright smile.
それめえやん。文則って頭いい。
何もそこまで。
It's not exactly a great plan, but I guess the fact that it lessens the risk to me is enough to excite her. She's so easy to please, but that's part of what makes her so cute.
で、いつ頃来るの？浩二さん。
わからない。 いずれ奴の方から電話があるだろう。そしたらここに誘い出して仕留める。
Koji will come. I know that he won't leave us alone. We could just keep running, now that we've started. But I want to eliminate Koji as soon as possible. Therefore, when he contacts me, I intend to meet with him. Unless it's an obvious trap.
せっかく人間一人分の肉が仕入れられるのに、ここだと腐らせちゃうね。冷蔵庫ないし。
他の動物を誘う餌にできないか？野良猫とかカラスをおびき寄せてさ。
それ危ないよ。万が一取り逃した時、よそに持っていかれて他人に見つかったら大騒ぎになるよ。
そっか。それもそうだ。
Humans are extremely dangerous, and their filthy, stinking bodies make me sick just by being nearby. Ironically, however, nothing tastes better than their meat. I truly regret having to abandon our well-stocked fridge.
まあ、この辺だと森にもいろいろと住んでるから、そんなに食事には困らないんじゃないかな。
3人分だよ。大丈夫かい？
任せて。これでもさや、狩りは得意なんだから。頑張っていっぱい捕まえてくるよ。
そうか。じゃあ今日からはサヤが一家の大黒柱だな。
へへ。
Saya giggles happily at my praise. I find these childish qualities of hers adorable.
今度はどのぐらいのんびりできるかな。
Because of the casual way she says it, I almost miss the emptiness to which her question leads.
どのぐらいかな。
Saya's right. This won't last forever. No matter how safe this hideout might seem, we will have to abandon it eventually. The slightest mistake could put our life together in jeopardy, just like when I failed to silence Koji. Some dumb kids might decide that this old ruin is a good place to test their courage, or this land might be targeted for new development. In order to be together with Saya, I have chosen to live apart from society. We'll never find lasting peace in this world teeming with humans. Not unless we somehow escape from it.
長い旅だと思えばいいさ。
I pull Saya into my arms and fold my hands around her slender shoulders, then whisper.
どうせ人生なんて旅みたいなものなんだ。永遠に変わらない場所なんてない。時の流れを見送るか、自分自身が流れていくか、それだけの違いだよ。
My guess is this ending, Koji and Ryoko kill Fuminori and Saya.
そうだよね。
Saya smiles softly, perhaps in resignation, perhaps in sadness. Either way, there is peace and contentment in her expression.
それでも一人ぼっちじゃないし、だからさやは寂しくなんかないよ。ふみのりもそうだよね。
ああ。
I have no regrets. As long as I can hold Saya in my arms, I will gladly pay any price.
それにね、
She adds brightly, trying to cheer me up.
いつかは私たちが人目を忍んで暮らさなくてもよくなる日がきっと来るよ。それは約束してあげるから。
It sounds like a fairy tale, but for some reason, she seems absolutely certain.
それは明日かもしれないし、ずっと先のことかもしれない。いつ印が来るのか私にもわからないの。初めてのことだから。ほんのちょっぴり怖いんだけどね。
I have no idea what Saya's prophetic words mean, but this isn't the first time that she said or done something mysterious. He's performed any number of miracles already.
僕らにも希望があるのかい？
He says with a cheerful nod.
きっとそれがさやが文則に送ってあげられる最後のプレゼント。さやの最初で最後の務め。
And back we go to Koji. The hands of his watch move with agonizing slowness as though counting down to the end of the world. In the hours since contacting Ryoko, Koji went back to his apartment, showered, changed clothes, and even had his first full meal in days. He wanted to take a nap, knowing that he needed the rest, but no matter how hard he tried, sleep never came. Forcing himself to relax only made his nerves colder and sharper. With nothing else to do, he decides to wander the city until nightfall. Downtown Tokyo is bustling. Surrounded by smiling pedestrians, bright lights, and windows decorated early for Christmas, it feels as if all the happiness in the world has been gathered in this very place. Koji takes it all in, burning it into his memory like it's the last thing he'll ever see. Is the world so beautiful because of the horrors that lurk in its shadows? The glow of the city can no longer warm him. Perhaps that is why it seems so precious. Koji watches the city for hours. It feels unreachably distant, like reading the obituary of someone you loved long ago. His phone rings at 8 p.m. It's Ryoko. Their conversation is short. She hangs up as soon as they decide where to meet. And so ends Ono Koji's final night of peace. Ryoko arrives at the diner at 1 a.m., 1 hour later than agreed upon. She has a heavy-looking duffel bag under her arm. Koji doesn't feel like asking what the bulges represent.
すまんね。いろいろと準備に手間取った。
Ryoko doesn't sound at all apologetic, but Koji decides to just nod expressionlessly. Only a few tables are filled at this hour, like lonely islands in the midst of a vast restaurant. After sending the bleary-eyed waitress away with an order for 2 coffees, Koji and Ryoko are left all alone in a corner of the dining area.
で、調べ物は終わりましたか？
Koji asks bluntly while sipping dutifully from his third cup of watery, tasteless coffee.
待たせただけの甲斐はあると思いたいね。何分確証を得るまでには至ってないんだが。
文則も相当じれてると思います。こちらから連絡すると言ったきり、丸1日放置してますからね。
そんなにも彼は君との接触を意識してるのか？
さやっていう名前には露骨なほど反応してました。
In the silence that follows, Koji tries to soothe his parched throat with another mouthful of weak coffee.
そうか。やはりさやなのか。
Ryoko mutters. It's obvious that her grimace isn't for the coffee.
今なら丹保先生はもう答えを知ってるんですね。さやというのは何なのか。
Koji asks, his tone almost confrontational. Ryoko tries to ignore Koji's question by nursing her coffee, but that only works until the cup is empty. Staring at the brown stain on the bottom of her cup, Ryoko says, her voice hard and flat.
君は私の忠告を無視した愚か者なわけだが、もう一度だけ証拠りもなく言わせてほしい。殿君、君は手を引いて全てを忘れるべきだ。
証拠りもないですね。
Koji replies, smiling bitterly instead of glaring at her like he did before.
俺がまだ先生や文則とは境界線を挟んだ反対側にいるとでも？
君はまだ一番致命的なものまでは見ていない。君にとってこの事件は無二の親友がいきなり正気を失ってに目覚めたっていう、ただそれだけの内容なんだろ。
Ryoko continues with a disparaging smirk. That's all? The things that Fuminori has done are so horrifying that Koji's only recourse, his only hope of coping, is to kill the man who was once his friend. Yet despite that, Ryoko makes this nightmare sound like just the beginning. Koji still doesn't understand where morbid pessimism comes from, nor does he want to.
それだけじゃないとしたら、残りは先生の妄想なんじゃないですか。
そう思えるならまだ君の傷は浅いってことさ。
Her brusque tone says that she doesn't care whether or not Koji is satisfied with her explanation.
今ならまだ時間が君の傷を癒してくれるだろう。君は最後の一線を踏み越えていない。
Koji considers Ryoko's words calmly without letting himself get emotional like before. The final line. True, Fuminori is somewhere beyond that. Although Koji has gone far enough to be willing to kill Fuminori, he has no intention of eating his enemy's flesh once he's dead. That at least still separates the two. And what about Ryoko, who has treated Koji like an ignorant fool ever since she saved him from the well? How close is she to Fuminori?
先生の傷は俺よりも深いと。
In response to Koji's biting question, Ryoko's mocking smile turns inward.
この銃はね、実家の父のものなんだ。
Ryoko pats one of her duffel bag bulges.
こいつがロッカーから消えたせいで、父は責任を問われて地元の猟友会から除名させられた。申し訳ないと思ってるよ。私は両親にとっては自慢の娘なんだ。それが金庫の銃を盗み出すなんて想像もしてないだろう。
そうするだけの必要が先生にはあったと。
いいや、全然。
Her quick denial isn't what Koji was expecting.
その頃にはもう王外のことは一見落着していた。少なくとも私はそう思っていた。奴は姿を消したきり、もう二度と私の前には現れないだろうと安心してた。この銃で何かを撃とうとか殺そうとか、そういう必要があったわけじゃない。
じゃあなぜ？
眠れなかったんだよ。ただそれだけ。
Ryoko pauses, perhaps needing time to decide how to best explain.
それまではベッドサイドにナタを隠しておいたんだ。夜一人で部屋にいるのが耐えられなくてね。
He continues, choosing her words carefully.
どんなに世界が底抜けにめちゃくちゃになっていこうと、悲鳴を上げて逃げ回る以外の選択肢が自分にはあるんだって、そう納得させるためにはね、部屋の中に何か一つ頼りになる武器を置いておきたかった。
Koji doesn't know what to say. He's amazed, impressed even, that someone with such a serious case of delusional paranoia could function as one of Q University's top doctors.
でもそれじゃ大した効き目はなかった。悪夢は日ごとにひどくなっていく一方で、安眠するにはナタじゃまだ足りなかったんだ。それで父の銃を盗んできた。こんな風に重心を詰めるとね、散弾がもっと広範囲に飛び散るようになって殺傷力が増すんだそうだ。アメリカでも重罪になる改造なんだとさ。私はそれをクローゼットの奥に突っ込んで、それでようやく眠れるようになったよ。
Even in America, that's fun.
3日に一晩ぐらいはね。
At this point, Ryoka seems to have gotten everything off of her chest. Smiling like someone who had just finished a hard job, she adds,
銃はいいよ、本当に。相手に向かってぶっ放すもよし、それでダメなら自分の口に突っ込んで引き金を引くっていう選択肢もある。
先生は専門家の治療を受けるべきです。
端的な感想ありがとう。でもね、君だって他人事じゃなくなるよ。これ以上先に進むんならね。
Koji is already doubtful that meeting with Ryoko was the right thing to do. The one thing that he and Ryoko have in common is an unwillingness to leave Fuminori to the proper authorities. Fuminori not only killed Koji's lover and friend, but even went so far as to defile their corpses. Koji isn't about to give him the chance to get off on an insanity plea. No matter what crimes he must commit, Koji will end Fuminori with his own two hands. If he doesn't, he knows that he will never sleep again. It helps to have a partner in crime, but only when the partner doesn't cause trouble. Ryoko talks big about exposing Ogai's secrets, but she might just have a head full of delusions. If so, Koji needs to rethink this whole thing.
この先全てを先生に任せるというのなら、先生のこと信用させてください。
Koji says with unflappable determination.
先生をそこまで追い詰めるほどのものがオーガイっていう男にあったという証拠を、彼が何をしでかしたのか全て俺に見せてください。
そこまで言うかね、まったく。
Ryoko smirks and shakes her head ruefully, but puts up no further resistance. She pulls a stack of papers from her bags and hands it to Koji. The loose leaf sheets are bound with a string.
一行読んだら続きは次のページの同じ行だ。まあ、触りだけでも読んでみるといい。
As directed, Koji looks through the handwritten pages and gives up after less than 3 minutes.
怪奇 SF の草稿か何かですか。罪のない悪ふざけですね。彼にはこんな子供っぽい趣味があったわけだ。
Koji deliberately scoffs at the document, doing everything he can to show contempt for what he read. At the same time, he tries desperately not to remember the mountain of bones in Ogai's bathtub and the unidentifiable smell permeating Fuminori's house.
1年前、オーガイがうちの大学に持ってきた資料も、その文章と同じぐらい突拍子もないものだった。
Ryoko says, coldly ignoring Koji's disdain.
奴は大学の機材を無断で使ってこっそり検査をしようとしたらしい。だがドジを踏んで露見した。そこから先はもう大騒ぎでね。オーガイが使おうとした機材から察するに、奴はそいつを P3 レベルのバイオハザードとして取り扱うつもりだったらしい。その程度の用心で十分だったのかどうかも知れたもんじゃないんだが、近隣の住民を退去させるべきだったんだが、まあそこは偉い人たちが偉い人なりに頑張って全部なかったことにしてくれたよ。その代わり私たちはキャンバス中のネズミを一匹残らず駆除する羽目になった。ネズミとかつてネズミだった何かをね。
At their first meeting, Ryoko brushed Koji off when he asked about Ogai Masahiko. Now, however, she's telling the whole story. Her voice as flat and emotionless as a machine's.
事の究明には結局皆がサジを投げた。オーガイが持ち込んだ資料がどういう起源のものなのか、誰にも突き止めることができなかった。まあ結局みんな賢明だったわけだ。理性は理性、ざれ言はざれ言。 そういう線引きを危うくしないで済む程度ってもんを心得ていた。でもあいにく当時の私はそこまで賢明じゃなかった。
Ryoko pauses for a moment, then grins with self-disdain so maniacal that it strikes Koji like a blow.
あれこれ探って暴き出して、私は鴎外が何をしていたのか知った。彼が関わっていた連中や彼をそそのかした連中も突き止めた。ナタと添い寝するようになったのはその頃からだ。この世の理性ってものがどんなにタガの緩んだ穴だらけの頼りない代物なのか理解するようになったのはね。
As though fleeing from the quiet insanity that he keeps glimpsing in Ryoko, Koji finds himself paging through the loose leaf in his hands. He reads a line at random. The organism's flesh is not fibrous but reticulated. But simply, it's an extremely tough substance that expands and contracts, not in one direction but in all directions. This means that slashing or piercing damage has very little effect, since the flesh can contract in any direction. Freely. Any wound will be sealed instantly. It's nonsense, but what else can it be? If he lets himself believe it, then everything else, all the logical rules that define the world, will be rendered meaningless.
じゃあ先生は信じるんですね、この内容を。
疑う理由なんてとっくの昔に見失ったからね。
Ryoko reaches into her duffel bag again, this time removing a stainless steel thermos that looks to be able to hold about 500 cc's of liquid.
こいつが鞘を倒す切り札だ。調達するのに手間取ったが、多分こいつは敵面に効く。
ついていけません。
Koji snaps, no longer able to disguise his frustration.
鞘が何だろうともうどうでもいいです。俺は文則を終わらせることができればそれでいい。あなたには任せておけません。
そうか。
Now that she's given up on persuading, her asset is swift and cold. At this moment, Koji's fate has likely ceased to matter to her.
いいだろう。君は先坂文則を仕留めるために全力を尽くすといい。私もその気に乗じさせてもらうとする。君の邪魔はしないし、君が仕損じた時にはきっちりと私が帳尻を合わせてやる。
Despite the determination in her voice, Koji can't bring himself to trust this paranoid doctor completely.
あなたの持ち合わせている理由で文則を殺せるんですか？
潔癖症なんだよ、私は。ああやって人の世界の拉致外に隠れ住んでいるような奴らが我慢ならない。奴らは寝室のゴキブリだ。枕元で傘こそ這い回る音を無視して眠れるか。見つけ次第殺して駆逐する。そうせずにはいられない。私の精神衛生上の問題だ。
Her reasons are similar to Koji's own. He doesn't want to bring a murderer to justice, nor does he want revenge for Omi and Yo. If he did, he could have left everything to the police. The reason he can't is that the villain is Fuminori, the man he believed was his friend, has turned his whole world upside down. Everything and everyone with a part of this madness is to blame, and that includes himself for allowing the betrayal. His self-loathing, his desire to destroy is what's keeping him on his feet.
さあ、それじゃあチェックメイトに駒を進めよう。先坂君を呼び出すといい。
Koji nods, pulls out his cell phone, and calls his friend for what will probably be the last time. The call goes through quickly, so Nori must have been waiting for it.
待たせたな、文則。こっちの準備は整った。
コージ、今どこにいる？
Fuminori must have been quite anxious to hear from Koji. His voice is hard and completely emotionless.
お前のすぐ背後とでも言っておこうか。
Koji can't help but smile at Fuminori's disappointment. Perhaps Ryoko's maniacal sadism has rubbed off on him.
で筑波を解放する決心はついたのか？
ああ、背に腹は変えられない。
He's lying, Koji thinks, remembering the contents of Fuminori's refrigerator. Just what part of the O did you eat, huh? Did you carve that poor girl up like a pig?
お前は集めた資料のすべてを証拠ともども持ってこい。その内容を見て納得できたら、僕らは用を引き渡す。
いいだろう。場所は？
まずは王線の Y 駅まで来い。そこでお前が一人なのを確認してから、詳しい場所を教える。
念の言った話だな。
妙な細工はなしだ。45分以内に来い。
Fuminori hangs up without waiting for Koji's response.
俺が単独なのを確認するまで居場所は教えないつもりみたいです。
ただの偉大生にしちゃ心得てるな。感心だ。
Ryoko's praise sounds serious, drawing a glare from Koji.
私の車はここに置いていこう。殿君、君の車のトランクに人一人が入る隙間はあるかい？
大丈夫ですが。正気ですか？映画の見過ぎですよ。
そんじょそこいらの映画よりは危険な冒険なんだよ、これは。
With those bold words, Ryoko grabs her duffel bag and rises from her seat.
で、この店を待ち合わせに選んだのは君だったな。
そうですが、何か？
コーヒーの責任を取れ。
She says and tosses him the check. Even after Koji arrives at Y Station as directed, Fuminori calls him and makes him change locations 3 more times. Koji is beginning to doubt that Fuminori is watching. He might just be using the time to guess when Koji arrives at each designated location. Nevertheless, Koji can't let his guard down. Fuminori might choose any moment to make sure that he's alone. If he makes a mistake and puts Fuminori on alert, Ryoko will lose her chance to take him by surprise. She'll just have to put up with the cramped trunk for a little while longer. After the nature preserve and the dry riverbed, the 4th location to which Fuminori sends Koji is the thick forest at the top of the foothills, high above the developed area at their base. His car's GPS shows a road that leads nowhere, but according to Fuminori, there should be an old abandoned sanatorium there. The park and river were empty this late at night, but during the day would likely have been considerable traffic. This time, however, his instinct is telling him that it's definitely a place that no one could find, not even by accident. It looks like this is the final stop. Koji drives up the steep incline, soon leaving the residential neighborhood behind. Even though the hands of progress are right at its doorstep, the undeveloped forest is darker than he expected. This looks like a great place to live in secret, or to kill someone and hide their body. Places like this, lost and forgotten, aren't found only in deep jungles and hidden valleys. Laws in the world are everywhere, even in the midst of civilization. A broken down gatepost suddenly appears in Koji's headlights like a ghost rising from the darkness. It looks like this is the final stop. He rolls up to the gate and turns off the engine, giving himself to the silence of the forest. His phone starts ringing almost immediately. He doesn't need to check who it's from.
着いたぞ。
ああ、聞こえてた。ようこそ我が新居へ。
Fuminori is nearby, close enough to hear the sound of the engine. A shiver of excitement shoots up Koji's spine.
中に入ってこいよ。ようも待ってる。
Fuminori hangs up without another word. After grabbing his new flashlight from the glove compartment and checking that the revolver is still in his pocket, Koji opens the door, making sure to pop the trunk at exactly the same time. Ryoko shouldn't need any more explanation than that. Realizing that the interior roof light will stay on and broadcast that the trunk is enclosed, Koji quickly unscrews the bulb, then gets out of the car and deliberately slams the driver's side door hard. Mounds of trash litter the front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. Koji sees everything from small refrigerators and mopeds to large chunks of concrete and plaster that must have been abandoned by construction workers. The fact that they could get away with leaving all this stuff behind shows how remote this place is. Glancing sidelong at the rear of his car, Koji sees no movement inside the barely open trunk. Ryoko knows what she's doing. She'll probably wait until Fuminori's attention is focused on Koji before making her move. The moon is brighter than usual, allowing Koji to walk through the front yard without tripping on debris. Staying alert, he heads for the building beyond the mountains of trash. Something must be buried underneath the piles of garbage because the whole yard is filled with this sharp stink of chemicals. Even the homeless probably wouldn't come to this place. If you need to get out of the wind and rain, there are plenty of shelters more suitable. When he reaches the gaping, doorless entrance to the building, Koji glances back the way he came. His car parked at the gate is hidden behind the mountains of trash. Even if Fuminori is watching from inside the sanatorium, he shouldn't be able to see Ryoko crawl out of the trunk. That looks like she'll get her chance to take him by surprise. How many times now has he stood like this, alone in some ominously silent place far removed from his everyday life? Sinking into deadly quiet houses to find traces of unimaginable happenings has become as normal as going to class. The houses that he explored before were like freshly shed cicada shells, empty and dilapidated but with traces of the life they had sheltered. This place, however, is different, a perfect ruin. Its walls and pillars rising from the dark forest like an army of ghosts with no sign that the people once lived and worked here. The structure resembles a skeleton more than a shell. Time and the elements have stripped of its former shape, and now there is only death. Koji has gone as far as he can. This must be the final stop. What will Fuminori's next move be? He must be planning to kill Koji, but how? Just as he's about to turn on his flashlight, Koji reconsiders. If he wanders around with the light on, he'll be broadcasting his exact location. That'll give the advantage to Fuminori. He's probably lying in wait for him right now. Yeah, I was gonna say, when you're sneaking around, you do not keep your flashlight turned on. He holds the light before him in his left hand with his finger poised on the switch. In his right hand, he raises the revolver, keeping it pointed in the same direction. Now ready to fire when he turns on the light, Koji steps quietly into the dark ruin. It takes a while for his eyes to adjust, but even when they do, he has only moonlight streaming through empty windows to guide him. Everything appears gray and indistinct. However, Fuminori has to deal with the same conditions if he's hiding here. This is a battle of nerves, exhausting and deadly, where the first to make a sound and give away his position will lose. The rooms on both sides of the hallway are all open. Some are even missing their doors. Koji creeps up to each entrance, checks to make sure no one is inside, then carefully proceeds on. The stink that he noticed in the garden has changed. Now it smells more organic, like rotting meat. It's the exact same smell that filled Fuminori's house. The organism's flesh freely expands in a manner that renders piercing damage meaningless. Koji grits his teeth and forces the madman's words out of his head. What good can come from taking them seriously? This isn't the time for such useless. Koji freezes and stares down the hall. It was a wet sound that he heard just now, like someone dragging their feet through a swamp, and it came from the room at the end of the hall. Something is there. Something is alive. Koji creeps towards the sound, his light and gun at the ready. Now it sounds like someone squeezing mud through their fingers. And as he gets closer, Koji begins to hear breathing. Could it be Fuminori? No, that's impossible. He should be in waiting for a chance to ambush Koji, not making careless noise. As he proceeds, the strange sound coming through the cracks in the concrete walls grows clearer. Okay, I'm going to have to turn off voices here. Before he knows it, he is standing on the threshold. The room is filled with thick, viscous darkness. It's like every other room that he's passed. There is more than just darkness, however. Something is there. He can hear pained breathing, like that of a wounded animal, and what sounds like sobbing. Sobbing? Who's there? Koji whispers into the darkness. Actually, maybe I'm good to keep voices on. Now that he's given away his position, he might as well turn on his light. For some reason, however, Koji feels that to do so would have disastrous consequences. The last time I heard her voice on the phone, she was sobbing. The wheezing suddenly stops. And then...
Koji.
A whimper comes out from the darkness. They're not a human voice, not by any measure. It speaks some blasphemous semblance of human words. A nightmarish flash of insight connects the dots in Koji's mind.
Tsukuba.
It can't be. Yo doesn't sound like this. She doesn't smell like this.
Koji. Onegai. Kurasute.
But if it's not Yo, then how does it know his name? Why is it begging for him to help? No, it can't be Yo. She's human, not some creature that slithers and hides in the shadows. The thing wriggles closer. His reason cries out, imploring him to switch the light on before it's too late, or to turn and run if he can't. But Koji is unable to make either choice. He can only call out in vain to the amorphous shape in the darkness.
つくばなのか直江まさかつくばなのか
しなさい。もう。お願い。殺して。
Something soft and slimy slides over Koji's toes. Instinct overrides his will, forcing him to turn on his light and shine it at his feet. The white beam reveals everything, the merciless truth that has finally shattered Koji's sanity. Terror wipes his mind of all but 2 words, gun and trigger. His finger responds with instant obedience. There's an explosion of light and sound, both more intense than he anticipated, and then their destructive forces are swallowed up by the darkness. His ears are still ringing from the bang, but he hears a weak voice coming from the shadows. Koji springs and pulls the trigger again and again, certain that salvation can come only from the barrel of his gun. Light and darkness, explosion and silence. They dance before him 3 more times. Koji doesn't even need to aim, the horrible creature is right at his feet, far too close to miss. Ryoko warned him how many bullets were left in the gun, but that information has already been driven from his mind. Even after the cold, heavy gloom wraps itself around him once more, Koji keeps pulling the trigger like a man possessed, paying no heed to the clicking of the empty weapon. His panic-stricken legs suddenly give out, sending him hard to his backside. Even then, he keeps firing the empty gun. He knows no other way to erase the memory of the thing that he glimpsed in the beam of his flashlight. The light, which fell from his hands during the attack, is now pointing in a different direction. And though all 4 bullets must have hit their target, they were Koji's last cards to play. Which leaves him alone in the darkness with no way to defend himself, and just as he realizes this, a massive rotting flesh rolls over him like a tidal wave. He can no longer even scream as the thing pushes him onto his back. With fear seizing his throat in an iron grip, Koji struggles desperately against the monster as it crawls up his body towards his face. Covering his face with his left hand, he scrambles wildly along the floor with his right, searching for a way out that doesn't exist. His mind is that of a feral animal, empty of everything but primal terror. And that is why, when his right hand closes around something hard at the last moment, he recognizes it instinctively as a weapon. Putting every ounce of strength into his arm, Koji swings the heavy object at the creature on top of him. Here's the thud of a blunt object striking something soft and wet, and then Koji's attacker rolls off him. As soon as he's able to move again, Koji leaps to his feet and grabs his new weapon with both hands, brandishing it like a charm to ward off evil. Only now does he realize that he's holding a rusty steel pipe. The monster is still sobbing. With a cry that is part scream, part roar, Koji raises the steel pipe and brings it crashing down on the cowering creature. Hears a wet sound and feels the blood-chilling sensation of its thick, soft flesh absorbing the blow. These combine to invoke an instinctive loathing that warps his mind of all but the urge to destroy. Consumed by the same desperation with which he kept firing the empty gun, Koji rains blow after blow down on his enemy. After the 10th blow, it stops sobbing. After the 20th blow, it stops moving. And after the 30th blow, it begins to feel and sound more and more like he's beating a puddle of viscous liquid. Koji doesn't stop thrashing the creature until he recovers enough of his senses to realize that whatever it must have been before, it is now nothing but a corpse. The pipe in his hand, covered with unidentifiable fluids and filth, suddenly feels unbearably heavy.
君はまだ一番致命的なものまでは見ていない。
Ryoka's voice plays back in his head, and at last he knows how merciful her warning was. Now that his eyes are as open as hers, he is able to laugh in contempt of his own foolishness. 20 years of memories in the light of the sun. If they were indeed precious to him, then he should have never come to this place. The black flames of despair rise within him, consuming fear and revulsion and pity. Only rage and hate remain. Every cell of his body cries out for vengeance, for the blood of the man who poisoned him with truth and tore him from the womb of innocence. And then Koji, slave to hate, hears the sound of someone sneaking up behind him. Koji whirls, swinging his pipe with all the force he can muster. His enemy hastily leaps back to avoid the strike, surprised by his failure to catch Koji off guard. Twisted shadows dance in the beams of the light on the floor. Readying his pipe for the next blow, Koji faces off against his second attacker.
さっきさからFuminori.
Before this moment, Koji could never have imagined that he would ever speak to his friend's name with such hatred.
おいおい、今の一振り、まるっきり手加減抜きかよ。
Even now, Fuminori is smiling as though the huge axe in his hands is just a sick joke.
参ったな。正直なところ、お前はもう少し迷うもんだと思ってたんだけど。
迷うだと俺が貴様に
Koji sneers too, unable to contain his contempt for the notion.
貴様近江をどうした？筑波に一体何をした？それを考えてもまだ俺が貴様を殺すのに迷うだと。
そいつは言いがかりのつけ方が逆だろ、コージ。
Fuminori growls, looking sadly at the pile of dead flesh at Koji's feet.
コージの分際で僕の世をひどい目に遭わせやがって。世の10倍は痛めつけてから殺してやる。覚悟しろ。
The blade of Fuminori's axe carves a murderous arc through the darkness, glittering menacingly in the faint light coming from the floor. Koji raises his pipe to block the ferocious swing. The heavy impact numbs his arms, but his large frame takes the blow without giving any ground. Fuminori presses the attack, delivering a second blow and a third. His axe, designed for chopping down trees, is deadlier and far more durable than the piece of pipe Koji found discarded on the floor. Each strike Koji blocks sends chunks of rust flying from his makeshift weapon. You can't win as long as he's on the defensive. He needs to create an opportunity to attack.
Come on!
Koji blocks a crushing downward swing, then pushes back hard before Fuminori can pull away, throwing him off balance. Fuminori stumbles backwards, then plants his feet to steady himself. Taking advantage of his opponent's temporary immobility, Koji delivers a punishing low kick to Fuminori's outer thigh. Fuminori grunts and retreats, swinging the axe wildly to prevent Koji from following up with another attack. Koji, however, does not press his advantage. He just stands where he is, calmly, fearing Fuminori with his stare.
お前喧嘩に慣れてねえな。
Fuminori roars and comes in for another attack, but the damage to his right leg seems to be slowing his swing. Easily blocking the axe with his pipe, Koji waits for Fuminori to exhaust himself.
死ね死ね
Fuminori delivers blow after heavy blow, howling savagely all the while. What he does not realize, however, is that the situation now favors composure, not brute force. When Fuminori raises his axe high for yet another attack, Koji sees that his movements have grown dull enough. Seizing the opportunity, Koji charges into Fuminori's rage and grabs the haft of the axe with his left hand. As Fuminori recoils in fear, Koji swings his pipe hard at his enemy's unprotected side. He feels the crunch of ribs breaking. The pain drives Fuminori to his knees. Staring down at Fuminori's defenseless head, Koji, surprised by his own lack of emotion, raises his pipe high to deliver the finishing blow. Which is when something wraps itself around his left ankle. The instant Koji panics at the unexpected sensation, something soft yet strong winds itself around his right leg and drags him to the floor before he can resist. He twists his body and tries to swing the pipe at the unseen enemy behind him, but his right hand too is seized by the same flexible force. He wasn't able to feel it through his pants, but now his blood turns to ice at the cold, slimy sensation of the thing wrapping around his uncovered wrist. That monster's still alive?
さや
Fuminori says encouragingly. Even while kneeling on the floor, his face twisted in pain, he manages a terrible, victorious grin. Saya. This monster is Saya. Koji struggles desperately to free his limbs from the creature's slimy grip. But more tentacles swarm over his body, stealing his freedom of movement. The horror has already driven Koji half mad. Just imagining the creature's appearance is enough to send him into a mindless panic. His scream is suddenly cut off as a slimy appendage seizes his throat. The most deadly tentacle isn't just cutting off his windpipe, it's trying to snap his neck, and it's getting tighter. Koji is certain that this is the end, but just as his vision begins to dim, an explosion brings him back to his senses. With a horrifying, inhuman scream, the creature releases Koji and retracts his tentacles. The first thing he sees after regaining his mobility is Ryoko running down the hall with a smoking shotgun in one hand and a silver tube in the other. Ryoko responds by tossing him the tube, but still lying on the floor he manages to snatch it out of the air. It's the thermos she showed him at the restaurant, the one she called her secret weapon.
そいつの中身を奴にぶちまけろ
Ryoko shouts to Koji. At the same time, she aims her gun at Fuminori, who's still on his knees 5 paces away. The double-barreled shotgun still has one shot loaded. The monster that attacked Koji is writhing in agony. It hasn't yet recovered from Ryoko's shot. But he's already seen that bullets aren't enough to kill these creatures. Now is his only
貴
chance.
様ら何を
Fuminori growls, gritting his teeth against the pain of his broken ribs. Forcing himself to be calm, Koji stands and carefully unscrews the lid of the thermos. There's no question in his mind that something extremely potent is inside. As soon as it's unsealed, a thick white mist pours out of the thermos and the surrounding air turns freezing cold. Instantly guessing what's inside, Koji lofts the thermos at the pile of flesh convulsing on the floor. The thermos sails through the air, spewing white fog, and like a baptismal fount, showers its liquid contents upon the hellish creature. His scream this time is incomparable to before. The monster thrashes in agony. Wreathed in white smoke, its screams are joined by Ryoko's cackling.
どうよ、マイナス197度だよ。ねえ、冷たい、熱い、ざまあないわね。
Perhaps the joy of vanquishing our nightmare was worth the last remnants of her sanity. The maniac glee blazing in her eyes can belong only to a shattered mind.
貴様
Fuminori staggers to his feet, roaring black curses. His rage seems to have drowned out the pain of his broken bones. Ryoko is not one to underestimate the threat posed by the axe. Her mad laughter fades away, leaving only a cold smile as she pulls the trigger. With a short burst of dark flame, Ryoko's gun sputters and dies. Ryoko is not an expert on firearms. It never occurred to her that shotgun shells need proper storage. And besides, she always expected that any situation where a gun would be necessary would also be one where she would not survive. Cursing in anger and dismay, Ryoko breaks the shotgun open and awkwardly pulls the dud out. Meanwhile, Fuminori stalks towards her like a vengeful demon, the head of his axe screeching as it drags along the floor. I have to stop him. Koji tries to charge Fuminori but only succeeds at sending himself sprawling. One of his shoes is stuck on the floor, frozen by the liquid nitrogen. As Ryoko fumbles in her pocket for a new shell, Fuminori closes the distance and raises his axe in both hands. Koji curses and rips his shoe free from the frozen concrete, but he knows that he'll never make it in time. Ryoko thrusts a new shell into the chamber of her shotgun and snaps it closed, then looks up to find her target. Fuminori is right before, too close to evade, and his axe is already crashing down with the wind howling in its wake. The sound of bone shattering, tendon snapping, and flesh tearing blends together in foul harmony. The thick blade enters through Ryoko's left shoulder, plowing through her collarbone and shoulder blade, smashing several ribs and popping her lungs like a balloon, before stopping in the center of her chest. Her expression frozen in shock by the impact, she sprays a geyser of blood from her mouth. He should have died instantly, but through some unimaginable force of will, Ryoko clings to life for a few seconds more. Grinning through blood-stained lips, he raises her shotgun. Not to the front, but to the side. Beyond the barrel of her gun, wearing the 77-degree Kelvin mist like a white cloak of death, is the weakly wriggling Saya. Fuminori's scream vanishes into the roar of the shotgun. The destruction is absolute. The impact of the shotgun pellets obliterates the half of Saya's body that fell prey to the liquid nitrogen. The frozen particles of Saya's shattered flesh drift to the floor like snow. Even the creature's special biology is insufficient to seal a wound from this size. From the opening pours internal organs, a tide of liquid slime and fat whose color is far too foul to belong to any living creature. The monster convulses, wailing in a weak, pitiful voice.
Saya.
With his axe still buried in Ryoko's body, Fuminori stares at the dying creature, his expression utterly devoid of emotion. Koji grabs his pipe and prepares to attack Fuminori from behind, but freezes when he sees the emptiness on the face of the man he hated. Fuminori pulls the axe out of Ryoka's corpse, then looks at Koji with glazed eyes. There's no recognition in them, nor hate, nor rage. When Koji meets Fuminori's blank stare, he knows there is nothing left in him to kill. Fuminori grips the axe closer to his head and raises it high, the blade towards his face. Koji doesn't know whether he should intervene, but even if he wanted to, what could he say to stop Fuminori? Fuminori pulls his head back slowly, then drives his face into the blade of the axe like a spring-loaded toy. His skull caves in with a dull wet sound and the spray of blood catches Koji in the face. Despite Fuminori's utter lack of hesitation, his first attempt at suicide succeeds only in transforming his face into a hash of crimson. Fuminori pulls his head back one more time, even slower than before, and with every ounce of strength still left in his body, he slams it into the blood-stained axe. The sound is wetter than before. Fuminori's body goes limp, then tumbles face first to the floor. Koji stares at the two mangled corpses for a while. He feels completely left behind, like he can't remember why he's standing in this place with a steel pipe in his hand. The stale air filling the ruined building becomes choked with the stench of blood, and the crimson puddles gradually spread across the snow-covered floor. Yet the tranquility of the scene makes it seem like a painting. A soft, slimy sound breaks the silence. Koji looks at the mortally wounded monster. The creature's on death's door, but even so it moves slowly, feebly. It drags its broken body through the sea of blood. It's coming for Fuminori. Koji had forgotten his anger, but now it comes surging back at full force.
死ねえよ。
He growls and stabs the monster with the end of his pipe. It convulses in agony but keeps crawling towards Fuminori. Koji explodes into a frenzy of rage.
死ねえよ。もう死んでろよ。これ以上文則に使えるんじゃねえよ。
Again and again he smashes the helpless flesh beast with his pipe. Something tells him that if he doesn't stop it here, he will truly have lost. The monster, however, never succumbs. It struggles on beneath his blows until finally it reaches Fuminori's corpse.
触るな。文則に触るな。てめえは何様だってんだよ。
Koji keeps swinging, his fury unabated, even as tears start to pool in his eyes. The monster's slime flies through the air, joining with the blood already covering his face. The creature extends one thin, trembling tentacle to touch Fuminori's shoulder, then lovingly caresses his blood-stained cheek. And then it stops moving. Even in its final moments, the monster would not let Fuminori go. It died, joined with them. At last, Koji knows that the world he loved is gone forever.
Hey, 今度のスキーだけどさ、今年はどっかスケートも遊べるところにしない？
Omi says enthusiastically, the exposed wounds of her face clattering. Chunks of her body are missing as though something's been nibbling on her. It makes her look a lot thinner. She's been worried about her weight recently, but now she shouldn't need to diet.
そういえばオウミってこの間初めてスケートやったんだって？
Fuminori laughs at Omi's crazy suggestion. He sounds amused, but it's hard to tell from his expression since his face has been cleaved in two by an axe.
20歳になって初体験ってのは興味早々いないんじゃないかな。
子供の頃はなんとなく怖かったのよ。あの靴なんだか刃物みたいでさ。
うん、わかる。あの靴で顔を蹴られたらきっと僕みたいになっちゃうよね。
Omi and Yo laugh at Fuminori's dumb joke. Yo never used to laugh with such exuberance. He seems truly happy now that she and Fuminori are officially together.
でもいきなり蹴って殺せたの？大見ちゃんすごくない？
容量はバットとそう変わるもんじゃないからな。思い切り振り回して斧頭の重さに任せて叩きつける感覚とか。
海のりにそう言われたもんだからさ、騙されたと思ってやってみたわけよ。そうしたらもう楽しくって。
What is this feeling? Something is wrong, though Koji can't put his finger on what.
私も見てみたいな。大見ちゃんが食べられるところ。
Ah, that's it. When he sees Yo's envious smile, Koji finally realizes what's bothering him.
なあつくば、
どうしたのコウジ君？
お前だけなんで普通なんだ？
Yo tilts her head quizzically like she doesn't understand what he means.
普通って私はいつも普通だけど。
でもお前確かあの時。
ああ、
Yo nods in understanding.
なんだ、私がコウジ君と違う姿になってた頃のこと？ずいぶん昔の話じゃない。
昔なのか？
そうだよ。
He replies, deflecting Koji's confusion with that uncannily cheerful smile.
だってコウジ君も今じゃ私たちの仲間じゃない。
ああ。
Oh, of course. Koji looks down and is satisfied to see wriggling tentacles where his arms and legs should be. When he opens his eyes, his mattress and pillow are soaked in sweat. It's always the same nightmare. He doesn't know how many times he's had it. But at least he's not leaping out of his bed screaming anymore. He sits up, clutching his throbbing head. It's 4 in the morning. He hasn't had nearly enough rest, but he probably won't be able to get back to sleep tonight. Time for a smoke. A full pack will last him until dawn. Now where did he put the pack he bought yesterday? Koji wanders sleepily into the den, where yet another old friend is waiting for him.
ひどいありさまだね。まったく。
ああ、先生。いたんですか。
Ryoko's chopped up corpse is sitting on his dining table, looking as deathly pale as ever as she sips coffee from a mug.
毎晩ずいぶんと辛そうじゃないか。ろくに眠れてないんだろ？
そうでもないですよ。薬を飲めば割となんとかなります。まだ。
Koji says amicably as he sits down across from her. Hallucinations like these are easier to deal with than elaborate nightmares like the one he just had. They should probably worry him more, though.
あの時私の忠告を聞き入れてれば、ここまで追い詰められることなんてなかっただろうに。
もうやめましょうよ、それは。過ぎたことじゃないですか。
Ryoko chuckles, smiling the same cruel, maniac smile that she used to when she was alive. Her left arm hangs from her half-severed shoulder, dangling like a forgotten wind chime.
そう。結構折り合いをつけてるんだ。
先生だってそうだったんでしょう。普段は優秀な脳外科医で通用してたんだから。
上辺だけ取り繕うだけならそんなに難しいことじゃないからね。
The corpse shrugs her intact right shoulder and grimaces in disgust as she takes another sip of her coffee.
でもね、多分この先はもっと悪くなるよ。心の傷は時間が癒してくれるけど、君はまあ言ってみれば毒に感染したようなものだから。
He's probably right. Everyone dreams at night, no matter how dim the memories may get. The nightmares will always be there to tear into Koji with fresh fangs. The insanity that has taken root in his own heart will grow, eventually consuming everything that's left inside of him.
俺の場合、先生っていう前例を見て学んでますからね。抜かりはありませんよ。
へえ、そうなの。
Koji nods, smiling confidently, then stands and walks to the bathroom, where he retrieves the weapon that he keeps hidden behind the mirror. Ogai's revolver, the one souvenir that Koji brought back from the other world that
も
night.
のすごい苦労したんですけど、結局ようやくその筋の人と渡りをつけましてね。弾も買ってあります。驚きましたよ。銃そのものより高いなんて。
おやおや。
In the mirror, Koji sees Ryoko with her axe-inflicted gash reversed. He raises her mug in a toast to Koji's resourcefulness.
で、何発買ったわけ？弾は。
一発だけです。
This time it's Koji who shrugs his shoulders. He uses both, exercising his privilege as the survivor.
それ以上必要になるような状況は、俺は願い下げなんで。
The corpse in the mirror nods sagely, her smile
ほ
approving.
んと、わきまえてるんだね、トノー君。
There's a brief silence. Koji doesn't really feel like getting all melancholy with a dead woman.
ねえ先生、いい加減ファミレスのコーヒーはやめましょうよ。なんなら新しいの入れますから。
When Koji turns around halfway through his sentence, he realizes that the room is empty, left for the silence of the night. And so Koji returns to the world of the sane. He lights his first cigarette of the night and takes a deep drag. While sitting alone in his den, puffing on his smoke, he stares at the gun in his hand. He knows just how precarious a cliff he's standing on. The final line of which Ryoko spoke is now one step behind him. Koji no longer has anything to protect his soul. Now that Ogai Mase, Hiko's fantasies and Tombo Ryoka's delusions have all become tangible horrors, he knows what insanity and despair truly are. Back in the real world, Saka Fuminori is wanted for several gruesome murders. It didn't take long for someone to discover the stockpiles of human meat in the empty Sakisaka in Suzumi homes, and the two refrigerators were found the remains of Suzumi Yosuke, his wife and daughter, and Takahata Umu. They found the clothes and other effects of Tsukuba Yo, but were unable to locate any trace of her among the various body parts, a fact that made Koji's nightmares all the more valid. Dr. Tombo Ryoko of the T University Hospital vanished mysteriously around the same time. Because she was Fuminori's chief physician, the police have been investigating her connection to his crimes. As for the two corpses secretly buried in the backyard of a certain ruin, well, they'll probably never be found, and this incident will become just another cold case. Koji alone knows what really happened, and he has no intention of revealing it. Not now and not ever. Ogai's writings were not nonsense, which means that everything else was. What fool was it who said that men are the lords of creation? Those who can believe in paltry things like human wisdom and valor are those lucky innocents who have not looked upon the abyss. Koji can no longer share in their blessed ignorance. He knows he has been defiled by the insanity called truth, and he will never believe again. If he has been poisoned, as Ryoko's ghost said, then that poison is not other than the truth itself. Excuse me, for some reason I started crying. Just as pure oxygen is harmful to the body, the naked truth has the power to destroy men's minds. Only by diluting it with lies and taking in small doses can humans maintain a healthy soul.
どんなに世界が底抜けにめちゃくちゃになっていこうと
Words once spoken by the living Tombo Ryoko passes through Koji's mind.
悲鳴を上げて逃げ回る以外の選択肢が自分にはある
That, without a doubt, was the comfort that she had hidden in her bosom. The only thing that allowed her to face her dreams each night. Koji has taken his predecessor's lesson to heart. He's prepared for anything. One bullet is always behind the bathroom mirror, promising him salvation. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt really choked up and started crying there. Anyway, that's where I'm gonna leave off for today's video. We'll continue next time to finish off the final ending, and now we'll finish off the rest of Saya no Uda. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time when we finish off the rest of the game. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye!